the fact that you're crossing over in all worlds, right? Your corporate and non-corporate world. So like
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was important. I will say when I first started trying to figure out how to brand myself, there was a little bit of a disconnect in my life. I felt like on social
Okay.
media, I felt like it was one thing, and then in my personal life, it was another thing. And I had to kind of connect those dots. And I think that everyone does. I think that it takes time and you do it on your own journey. So I feel like everyone needs to connect those dots in their own way. And you have to kind of figure out what that looks like for you. You have to figure out how much are you trying to put out there? How authentic, transparent do you want to be to your platform, to your job, to whatever? And then you kind of figure out how to do a hybrid of all of that.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to Inside Out Podcast. I'm your host, Yamoria Wright. The intention of this podcast is for you to enrich your life with behind-the-scenes interviews from entrepreneurs and thought leaders who are ready to keep it real about their journey thus far and what making an impact looks like to them from the inside out. Enjoy. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Inside Out Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, Ayanna Dutton. Hi, Ayanna.
Hi, so happy to be here.
Yes, I'm happy to have you. Ayanna is actually one half of the non-corporate girls. If you don't know them, I'll put a link in the description below. You definitely have to tune in. I had the pleasure of being a guest back in December when we lived a different life.
Yeah, I know, and it feels like forever ago. Forever.
It really does. And that was your last episode of that previous season, right?
Yes, you closed us out.
Yeah. All right. Ayanna Dutton is a brand architect who helps brands build and own their voice in their respective spaces. Well-versed in all things media, she has maneuvered through the tech, fashion, beauty, lifestyle, and entertainment industries, working with noteworthy brands such as Facebook, MKTG, Coach, Coty Inc., Wacol America, RWS Entertainment Group, and Cadillac, to name a few. This has given her the opportunity to navigate between the corporate and non-corporate worlds, becoming an expert in brand marketing, where she co-created her latest venture in the entrepreneurial space, Non-Corporate Girls, LLC, a rising and excellent podcast platform. How are you today?
Oh, girl, I'm blessed. You know, I'm okay. I've actually had such a horrible week, but I'm just really happy to like be here and be blessed and alive and well. So I really can't complain, you know.
That's amazing that you have that perspective. I think that that truly, like, to be like, this week wasn't it? But
Girl.
but I am blessed. This week wasn't it? But I'm here and I am blessed and highly favored regardless, or as my dad says, irregardless.
Yes.
So when we last spoke, you were in the process of processing life.
Mm-hmm.
Where are you at with that now?
Yeah, that's a great question. We actually had an episode. We recorded an episode yesterday, and I was saying on the episode, this kind of the same thing, that I'm actually in an exploratory phase right now. I feel like this week has been a spiral for me, and not just COVID related, like that adds a layer to it, but just with life in general, like, you know, what's my next step career wise, and like how am I feeling like with everything that has happened. Am I still walking in my purpose? Like, is like, what's my passion? Like, I've been thinking about all those things, and I've had a heavy heart with it all. So I think this week I've really been kind of just exploring, doing a lot of self-work, reading some books, and just kind of, you know, therapy. That's always helpful. And just trying to like dig deeper to the core about why I'm feeling the way I do, or the feelings I'm feeling, and what needs to happen from that. It's a very messy place I'm in, and messy is good because you kind of need that to be able to see through the light sometimes. But I just want to find the clarity, and I feel like that's where I'm struggling with. But I think that I'm exploring all of those layers, if that makes sense. That was a lot, but if that makes sense.
That actually does make sense. I was talking to my therapist on Wednesday, and I was telling her that lately what I've been what I have been doing is when I experience any of those aching, heart aching, you can feel it in your heart or your gut, like something just doesn't
Mm-hmm.
feel good, like those pains, that I'm really practicing sitting with those and exploring what that comes from. I also have been really exploring my triggers, like what triggers
Yeah.
those things. I could be watching TV and then all of a sudden I just get anxious about the future. I'm like, okay, what just happened until, like, be mindful. What did you just consume? What's
Right.
happening that's making you, or do you feel like you're not doing enough because you're just sitting? What is it that just triggered that
Right.
anxiousness? So that is a really, it's messy. It's a lot, but it's a really important place to be in, because I would offer, like, not having that balance of checking in with yourself would mean that possibly you're just living complacent, you know?
Exactly. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
absolutely. And I was saying this yesterday, but the only thing constant in life is change, right? So we're always
Mhm.
evolving, and sometimes you do have to like dig deep and figure out what that looks like, and it's going to be in different phases in our lives. We're always going to get
Right.
to some point where we need to figure out like those questions and really like analyze them. So,
And in the bio, it's very clear that, like, you're out here living life. You're like, oh, I'm gonna do this. I'm living. Oh, I'm gonna do this life thing. I'm gonna explore this life thing. Can you take us through your journey to, like, even to be able to maneuver through those entertainment spaces or those more like artistic spaces, and then very corporate,
mhm.
traditional kind of spaces? How were you able to do this?
Yeah, and it's such a great question. And I love that this is happening right now. And like,
Mhm.
God always knows because this is what I've been like digging deep into. Just like my journey,
Mm.
like, like what that has looked like and where am I going. So it's just very therapeutic to be able to actually like sit here and talk to you about it because it's helping me too.
Mhm.
So
Mhm. Mhm.
where do I start? Okay, so just going back a little bit, my career started out in advertising. When I graduated from undergrad, I was all set to like work for an advertising agency. I wanted to be like this. I wanted to be like a version of Mad Men, but not. um,
Okay.
and that didn't happen. That was what I thought. And so I ended up coming out of school, and I got a job at like a spot cable advertising agency, and I thought this was cool for the minute. It was whatever. I was learning things. That experience was like my first foray into the corporate world, like corporate world. I hated it. I
Mm.
was like, "Oh no, this is
Mm.
so not me." But but I defied so many things in that environment. Like I'm sure when I left, they created like a HR handbook on like what not to wear, how not to have your hair, just all kinds of stuff. Um,
Each time I've met you in person, your hair has been different. So I'm assuming
I
that's just what you
know.
do. Okay. All right. I mean, I do the
It
same too.
is.
The only reason why I do it less is because that if I'm not changing my hair, it's not because I don't want to, it's because I don't feel like going through it. But like,
Right.
I'm all for the hair changes. But go ahead. Go ahead. I digress.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right though. I mean, and it wasn't even on purpose. It's just how I felt. This is what it was. But you already know, working in environments where you're probably the only person of color, it's just
Mhm.
a lot of questions. There's a lot of things. So, and don't get me wrong, I was super professional. I dressed professionally, but I was always a fashion girl at heart. So, like, I come in,
Mhm.
my version of corporate and dressing up is very different than everybody else's. I
Mhm.
was just
Mhm.
always that girl. So anyway, that was whatever. And I learned so much at that job though. Like shout out to them. I won't say their name, but they was good. They helped me like level up a little bit in the advertising world and what that looked like. I realized there though that because I definitely didn't fit in, and I that's when I first started struggling with the whole fitting in thing because I felt like you
Got you.
graduate, you go to a corporate job, this is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to fit in. You're supposed to like dress it down a little bit, like not show your personality as much and all that jazz. And that was hard. It was really hard. And then I was like, why am
Mhm.
I doing this? So then I was like, okay, I knew I really wanted to be in fashion. So let me like segue into the fashion world. I had a couple of years where I left that job, segued into the fashion world, like went to school to get another degree, became a personal stylist, personal shopper, was working in the fashion industry, was working in retail heavy, which was a whole thing.
Wow.
So now I'm in a place where I'm definitely out of the box and I'm with
Mhm.
people who are out of the box with me. But it is such a hustle. It is such a hustle. It was a lot. And I learned a lot during my time being a freelance, like fashion girl. I got so many amazing experiences, like going to fashion weeks and all kinds of things and working for some good outlets and whatever. It was a hustle. And it was at the time when I felt like I wasn't sure if I could cut it. And that was a personal thing. I know I could have. We're our biggest critic. I stand in my own way. So
Yeah.
I basically told myself I couldn't do it anymore, which sucked, but that's what I did.
Were you afraid? Were you afraid of like the lifestyle success?
Girl, I think so.
Okay.
Because I will never forget this. And I like never share this story. So like you're actually getting this story, which is so crazy. But I will never forget when I was graduating from my certificate program at FIT. We had a really great acclaimed stylist come to our class, and they did things like that all the time. Like we worked with like real stylists and things like that to like get that field experience. He came to the class and he basically offered us an internship. He offered like a group of people
Oh, wow.
internship if we passed like one of our tests or whatever. I knew that I could ace that test. I knew it all. Like I knew that I could do this. And I did pass the test, but then we had to do some follow-up things to like show that we really wanted to be part of this internship. And I just had a moment in that class where I looked around at like, I was probably like one of the top 5 people who was really doing well, that we really could probably get it. And I looked around and I was like, God, like I'm not as good as these people. I was like, I can't do this. And I literally like bowed out from like even trying to take that internship. And in that moment, I convinced myself that I didn't want to do fashion anymore as well. Like it was a
Wow.
whole thing. It was a whole thing. And I'm like, girl, like you were at your last class. You've been slaving away for 3 years. You've been hustling, and you literally was like, I'm done. In that same time frame, I ended up getting a job at an advertising agency, like a real agency this time, not just the middle ground, which is what I started out in. And I ended up working for Cadillac. And that was a really great experience. I know everything happens for a reason. So obviously, I was like, okay, great. I ended up closing one door for myself, but another door did open. Cool. So I started working in Cadillac. Again, very corporate, very corporate. But it was a more flexible, chiller vibe than my first job. So I was like, okay, cool, I can do this. Learned so much there. And when I was at Cadillac, I realized my focus was advertising, but I realized I really loved marketing. And I wanted to get into marketing so bad, but there was so much politics and hierarchy around it within the system, the ecosystem there, that I wasn't able to kind of segue a position into marketing like I wanted. So during that time, it's let's say 3 years or whatever, I'm working there doing all kinds of great things, but still not really fulfilled, right? I'm like, well, maybe I should go back into fashion. So I decided that I was gonna go to grad school for fashion, because I was like, oh, I want to open my own brick and mortar store. I want to do this. I want to do that. I want to be a business girl. Long story short, I wanted to apply to go to a school in Italy. I had so much issues with like the visa and all this stuff that it deterred me. And I was like, I can't do that. I don't want to do this. So then I was like, well, let me go to a school here in the city. So your girl over here, I'm crazy as hell. I ended up applying to one school in New York, taking the GED, like literally studying and taking it within the course of a summer. And literally putting together my entire grad school like application process within months to apply to one school. Like I literally said one day at work, I was like, I'm gonna apply to LIM. And I was like, girl, it was a lot. Like everyone was like, you're crazy, like you need time. Literally. I did. It was like a 8-month process that I did in like 3-4 months. So I do not recommend this. Don't do this. But I did that. I sold myself. I knew that this school was the only school I was going to apply to. I sold myself to the board, and literally like they loved me so much that they fought for me. That test, I sucked at it. I'm a horrible test taker. My scores were low, but they vouched for me and I got into the school. So that was my way into grad school. And then when I got into grad school for fashion, I left my advertising job because I was doing both, but it got so hard. It was it was one of my best jobs, but it was such a sad moment, but I had to leave. So I ended up leaving there, going to grad school full time. So no job, no nothing, full time. When I graduated, it took me 8 months to find a job in marketing because I was set. I was like, I really want to get a job in marketing. I really do. And because, fashion was the school I went to, I was like, well, let me try to get a job at a fashion company, which, as you can imagine, mad hard, not
Yeah.
easy. And then I got a job, and it was my first job
Mm.
in marketing, like actually marketing. And I had to start from the ground up. It was a crazy experience, but a really blessed one, because I went from like coordinator to assistant to associate manager in like such a short time. It was really a great experience for me. And I had a lot of great people that I learned some good things from in the marketing world. But again, back in corporate. So it's like this is like my trajectory. I keep going back and
Right.
forth. So I was back in corporate, same situation there. I think when I left, they created some type of HR book about what not to wear, how not to have your hair, because literally I came in with all kinds of hairstyles, all kinds of colors. But the beauty of it all was, and I think I had an interview with someone recently that I was telling them this, and I was like, it was not that I hate feeling like I have to be the spokesperson for Black people. That's not what I'm
Mhm.
trying to do either. Like, I know we don't want to do that, but I did feel like I felt like it was my place to
Mhm.
educate people on why I wear my hair the way I do, or why I dress the way I do. I wanted to be a example to show them that you can be a Black person or a Latina or someone of color, and you can have green or purple hair, and you can
Right.
still wear your hair in like a really great chignon, and you can wear like a really bold red suit and still be a fly bitch in the court in the
Mhm.
boardroom. You know what I mean? You don't need
Mhm.
to
Mhm.
look like Sally, and you don't have to do that. And I was that girl.
Did it ever take well, it sounds like you were ready. What's your sign? Are you
I'm a
an Aries?
Sagittarius,
You're
though.
a Sagittarius. Okay. You were ready to, oh, that's the adventure though. Y'all like adventure. So you was there ever any stress for feeling like, oh my gosh, I'm the center of Black attention here?
It was kind of something that just happened. It's like I knew when I
Okay.
got the job. I knew when I got the job, I was the only person of color in my marketing department. So
Mm,
I knew that. I knew what I was walking into there. And then when you get to the other divisions, like there's pretty much no people of color in sales. Like it was just what it was.
mhm.
So I knew that. And then when it came to me and how I dress, and my hair colors and things like that, I started out subtle. I tested the waters a little bit. I would come in with, I would test it a little bit. And then to the point when I felt like I knew what I was doing. I was making I knew that I had a place here. I was making the company money. I was doing, like, handling my role, getting promoted, like doing other things that people saw my value.
Mhm.
I felt like that was my moment where I could definitely continue to like be who I am. So it's like pieces of me. I kept sharing my individuality until I fully just like showed up in my entire essence. And it was just
Okay.
kind of like, here I am. And again, people have their opinions. I had coworkers tell me things like, I wouldn't feel comfortable seeing someone of color, or like seeing someone of color with this color hairstyle or this style or whatever in our workplace. Like I've never seen it, so I wouldn't know how it would feel.
Mm.
But they're like, when I see you, you look so polished and so good. You make me want to do this.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
I would have people tell me that all the time. Slowly, as I was there, we got a couple more people of color, not that many, maybe like 6
Mhm.
total. But I would have people hit me up. They're like, God, I wish I could do what you do. And I'm like, you can. You have to own it.
Mm.
That's all it is. You have
Mhm.
to own it. Like, you have to act like you belong here.
Mm.
That's it.
I love that. I love, like, act like you belong here. And that confidence obviously translates. I feel like from what you've just told me so far, you have, even in fashion, wherever it was, you began to move into spaces and say, okay, I'm going to take up my space here,
Yes.
essentially. Has there ever been a time where you've been challenged by another person of color or anyone else about the space that you're taking up and the way that you're doing it?
So when I transitioned to natural hair, that was a whole thing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, yep, always. Oh, God.
Always. And I had someone, this girl had, she had a wig, and I love wigs. I'm always wearing a wig, so like no shade. But she had a wig, really great, like Indian 22-inch. It was all good. And
I love it.
I think I had complimented her on her hair in the bathroom or something. And she was like, thanks so much. She was like, I really love your hair too. She's just like, I wish that I could do that. And she was like, but you're so bold, and like you must not care what people think about you. And I was like, well, I didn't really know how to respond to that because I'm like,
Right.
well, I don't care what people think about me, but like, what are they going to think about me because of my hair? Like, what does hair have to
Mm-hmm.
do with it? And that started the whole conversation in the bathroom. And she was basically like, she just wouldn't feel comfortable. Like, she feels more comfortable when her hair is relaxed and when it's straight and all this stuff. And I was like, I get it. I was there. I get that. I was like,
Mm-hmm.
but at the same time, when I decided that I was going to go natural, I knew that it was going to be something that it was a choice that I was going to make for me. So I don't really
Mm-hmm.
care what other people think. And then literally people, they're like, "Oh my god, I love your hair. How does your hair do that?" And it's just like, cuz it's hair.
Mm-hmm.
This is what black people hair do. It's just like whatever. So yeah, I have had those situations, yes, and I just try to handle them the best way I can, and also understanding that everybody's journey is their own journey, and I would
Right.
never want to impose my journey on anyone else. Literally, everything I do and every way I've operated throughout these spaces is because it's how I feel. Like I have to. It's
Mm-hmm.
important for me to show up in my best authentic way because life is already hard, and when you're not showing up in these ways, you're giving people permission to tell you who
Mm.
you are, and I can't do that.
Y'all, Ayanna is out here preaching, sharing her journey. There's so much more to come. Hang tight for a quick message from our sponsor, and we'll be right back. Thank you for staying tuned, and we are back. Has there ever been a time where you feel like you fell into that and had to get yourself out? Because I know, so where I worked before was a Black company, but
Mhm.
that was a one-time thing for me. I fell into that, and that was a very unique experience. I did realize that I would come to work, and it was after like the first week. It wasn't that my job wasn't stressful, because it surely was, but I was like, what's so different? Oh, I don't have this like invisible stress that I know that I allow, right? I allowed,
Mhm.
but I didn't have it still, of this being like, okay, I'm the only woman of color here, or I'm one of few Black people here, feeling like I have to be less of myself. Because what you're saying to me sounds like show up fully to these spaces.
Yes, I am. But I do want to caveat by saying that it takes time. It takes time.
Mm,
In each job that I had to really like test the waters. I test the waters a lot. I do. I'm going to say that. I
mm-hmm.
do that. So like, it's nothing for like it's just I'm just thinking back to my life. I do this. But you know, I'm not saying people should do that, but I'm saying that that's how I roll. But it does take time. It takes time to get people to adapt to certain things, and it also takes time to not care enough as well. It's a process.
Mm,
I have tons of people of color coworkers that just because I operate one way, they're not comfortable doing that,
mm-hmm.
and that's okay. That's cool. Like they need to do that. So yes, I felt pressure for sure, but I've also known that because I've been in these environments, and I know what it's like when I'm not showing my full self versus
Yeah.
what it is when I'm showing my full self, and I just prefer the latter, if that makes sense. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like these moments I've just described to you, those were like some earlier days, whatever. As I've continued in my career, I just come out full force. Like I just
Mm-hmm.
because it's just like I already know what to expect. I already know pretty much I've probably been through it already. So it like don't
Mm-hmm.
really phase me that much anymore.
Mm-hmm. Do you feel so? Okay, so you've moved in between the corporate and non-corporate spaces. Where are you now? We talk about 2020 now. I know this year is what we thought. What is this? I almost call it this June. What we thought May would, and where are we on May 8th? We're almost in mid-May already. I
I
swear.
know.
What we thought May 8th would look like in 2020 is definitely different, than what it is. Where are you in your career? Because I've spoken to a lot of people who are at this very huge fork in the road. I would say myself as well. I turned down a job. Now the job, they were barely paying anything. It felt like it was busy work more than anything. And I'm not disregarding it is important, but I just felt that that position could be for someone else, and that I probably wouldn't appreciate it the way that they need. So I would be doing a disservice. It was a very weird way for me to think about a job position right now,
Mhm.
because I've never been that way. But where are you? I mean, 2020 has forced a certain amount of reflection or denial, depending on the
Yeah.
person. Where are you in terms of what you now really are like, this is the life I want?
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with everything you said. It is definitely a time for reflection for me. And I would say I've been reflecting specifically on the job piece for quite some time. I think that
Mhm.
with this COVID shift, it just has amplified it for me. So I'm blessed that I've had the opportunity to work with some really great brands, and I'm blessed that I've been able to learn so much in my growth thus far as a marketer. And I really want to move into another phase of marketing where I am helping either brands or individuals and having more of a direct impact. I feel like the companies I work with now and the roles that I'm in don't really give me that lens. And it for me, it's
Mm.
hard because I not that I need to feel like not that I need to see instant satisfaction or anything, but I do want a role where I can see that my efforts are literally impacting something, whether it is a
Mhm.
person or brand, a stream, whatever it is, that I can see the growth happening from that. And
Mhm.
it's not so many layers into it that I don't even get to see that. So that's what I want. That's what I'm looking for next. And wherever my life takes me, I definitely want the next situation I'm in to be something that I feel like I have more of a direct impact with people. I love working with small businesses and people of color and women. So, that could be an opportunity as well. I've been consulting on and off for years. I really want to figure out if that's something I need to maybe do full time or what that could look like. I feel like my purpose is helping people tap into
Mhm.
their potential and figuring like owning their voice. And I need to be able to feel like I'm doing that, if that makes
And
sense.
what would you say your passion is?
My passion is helping people feel their best, like, and whatever that looks
Mm.
like, whether it could be, oh, and creating, I'll say that
Mhm.
too, because that's what I've been discovering. Creation is a huge part of my passion, and that looks a lot of different ways. Creating marketing strategies for people to help them grow their brands. I love
Mhm.
creating
I
looks
might
for
need to hire
people.
you. I'm so serious.
I just
Go
I
ahead, sorry.
No, no, you're fine. Well, that's what I'm trying to figure out. I mean, I love creating looks for people. I love creating like personal brand image. Like, what does that look like? I
Mm.
just like creating. And
Mhm.
that's what I'm trying to identify. Like, how much more specific do I get with that? Is there an opportunity for me to keep it vague and really explore? That's kind of where I'm at. But I do know that I love creating and I love helping people tap into their potential and whatever that looks like. So that's where I'm
Yeah.
at.
I love that. What piece of advice would you say to women out there who are struggling to or challenged to identify themselves and their brands? Because corporate or not, right? We are in such a saturate, both markets, both industries, you could say any sub industry, but corporate and non corporate, regardless, very saturated with images, especially now since we're in this age of like Instagram and how image heavy we are. I saw a post yesterday, maybe it was this morning, I don't even know. I'm paraphrasing. We're at the point where it used to be like a resume or a website. Now you go to somebody's Instagram to try to gauge who they are. What
Hmm.
would you say to women who are having trouble really identifying that? How do you identify, like, this is who I am? Because I do believe there's something to be said about standing out. And it doesn't have to be different hair colors or anything, but you do need to kind of self identify. Like, who am I?
Exactly. No, I agree with you 100%. And I think it's a hard thing to do. It's a hard thing to do. It's
Mm-hmm.
one of those things where, especially when you're talking about social media, I know people struggle, and I've had clients who struggle with how transparent do you get, right?
Right.
Like, yes, you want to be authentic, but how much is that? And what does that look like? And is that on your personal social media? Is that on the brand you're creating? Is that on your company? Like, what does that look like for you? And there are also people who are trying to brand themselves. Like me, I'm someone that
Right.
loves trying to brand myself. And you have to think about the fact that you're crossing over in all worlds, right? Your corporate and non-corporate world. So like
Mm-hmm.
for me, it was important. I will say when I started trying to figure out how to brand myself, there was a little bit of a disconnect in my life. I felt like on social
Okay.
media, I felt like it was one thing, and then and then in my personal life, it was another thing. And I had to kind of connect those dots. And I think that everyone does. I think that it takes time and you do it on your own journey. So I feel like everyone needs to connect those dots in their own way. And you have to kind of figure out what that looks like for you. You have to figure out how much are you trying to put out there? How authentic, transparent do you want to be to your platform, to your job, to whatever? And then you kind of figure out how to do a hybrid of all of that. Like, for instance, I'm super transparent, but it's not like my whole entire social media doesn't know my life. You know what I mean? You can do it. You can be tactful in how you're putting yourself out there and the messaging you're trying to share without feeling like you need to share it all. So I encourage people to there's a lot of self-work there. I encourage people to really figure that out. But once you do figure it out, it needs to be consistent. Your messaging has to be consistent across all platforms, online and offline. So for me, it was really important for me to be as authentic as I am and show up in the best way possible everywhere. So my Instagram is one thing, but like you could see my Instagram and you can definitely connect the dots from my Instagram to my Facebook. You can connect the dots to my LinkedIn.
Okay.
Like you know exactly who this girl is. It's very, very clear. My website, even just being on Non-Corporate Girls, even being like on your podcast or in panels, you can tell who I am. And that should be the general consensus. You shouldn't be like, oh, really? Like, because I know people where I'm like, you come off one way, but when I meet you, this doesn't add up. I never want to be that person, because for me, if you are that person, two things are happening. One, you're either not showing up as your most authentic self and you're hiding a couple of things, or two, you're a fraud. So which is that?
She said, until you're a fraud. Which one is it? You're a fraud. You either do the inner work, you go do your inner child work, or you're a fraud. Okay, so I have a really random question for you, because I've been like ping-ponging this for the past couple of weeks with some friends. I want to know your opinion. Do you believe that women putting their relationships could be hurting their brand or helping it? Or like, how do they merge the two? Just from your expertise, what do you think?
Yeah, that's such a great question. I think that it depends on your comfort level and what you're trying to share. I think that there are some, I've seen some people on my social feeds who share their relationship in really great ways. Like the messaging they're trying to share about it is really great. Whether it's showing that, they're in love, but things can be messy, or, they're happy regardless of what life looks like, and they're blessed and all this stuff. Like people on my feed have done a good job about sharing their story in interesting ways that doesn't feel like you're giving me too much, but it also feels like I get the type of relationship you have, or at least the side of it you're willing to share with me, because relationships are very personal. I'm not going to talk for everyone, but for me, I don't necessarily feel comfortable sharing my entire relationship. However, I do show a couple of things. Like recently I got engaged and I showed that on my feed because
I didn't know that.
Wow,
congratulations.
Thank you. Yeah. Like,
oh my God.
I mean, but it's just like, like people, it's always funny because my fiance is always like, she's always like, you don't really show a lot of pictures of us. Like, and I'm like, I don't, because I don't want people to be focused on my relationship. But when I do show photos or when I do have messages, I feel like they're authentic to me. And I feel like as long as I'm comfortable with what that is, I can put that out there, if that makes sense. It's really based off of the person and their relationship. But I also feel, I will say that there are a lot of people who don't share their relationship on social media, and you are so allowed to not do that. Like if no one knows you're in a relationship, that's okay too. That's okay. Like it doesn't have to be an insight into my world, every single piece of it. It could be an insight into part of my world. My takeaway here is that whatever the messaging that you're putting out, you have to make sure it is authentic to who you are.
Right. Authentic to who you are. And consistency is also what I'm hearing. But I will say that I think there's something to be said about where we are now being intentional. And you can be intentional that you don't want, you want to put it whatever you want. Just be mindful that like it's a calling card. Like people are looking. Even if you're private, people peep that too. They're like, oh, that's a private person. You got to request. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. You have to do what's comfortable for you. Just like you said, it's really the intent behind it all.
So what in the world is, or in life, whatever, is currently hurting? What do you want to heal? And what brings you joy? You kind of spoke to healing already too, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, healing, I would definitely say myself. Like, I mean, there's so many things to heal, but since I did kind of touch on it already, I'll say myself, just kind of figuring out like what my evolution is and what that next phase is
Mm.
for me. So I'm definitely healing, trying to there's so much like things to unpack. So I'm just trying to like figure it all out. So that's
Mm-hmm.
healing. In terms of hurt, I'm so devastated by the racism in America that
Let's talk about it.
I'm devastated. Like I don't even know what to do. It's like it just you feel so helpless. And with these recent cases, and Ahmaud Arbery, like I'm just like
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. So I'm just hurting for that. Like it's like even on my feed, right? Like my feed today, and I'm sure maybe you have the same experience, but like I feel like all my friends of color like hate white people right now. And like it's just
Yo, I actually just had somebody share a post with me and I put it down. Like they just texted me. I was like, I'm doing a podcast right now, but I looked at it and it says something about white friends. And I'm, oh Lord, have mercy. Folks is angry.
yes. Yeah, and I'm just like, and it's a tough place to be because I get it, I feel you, I get it, I'm with it, but it's just also one of those
Mm-hmm.
things where it's like, I also have white friends, right? And like my white friends, I'm
Mm-hmm.
looking at them side eye, like it's just a lot, it's a lot going on, and I'm just trying to, I don't know, I'm just trying to understand. So I'm hurting because why
Mm-hmm.
is this the situation? Why is this the situation?
Why is it? Did you see Erica Hart? You know Erica Hart?
No.
Erica Hart, let me see here. Erica Hart posted, it was from yesterday, but she posted today, or I got somebody shared with me today. What Erica said was people are not connecting everyday incidences of racial violence to Black genocide in the US. The racism complaint ignored by HR contributes to our death. The celebrities doing blackface and making money off of Black features contributes to our death. The white kid stealing TikTok dances from Black kids contributes to our death. The racist president who doesn't get impeached for being racist contributes to our death. The all-white staff, production crew, neighborhood, etc. contributes to our death. The countless white people that are bold to retweet and give money to Shaun King, but are silent when their Black colleague is targeted at work contributes to our death. It's all connected. I'ma just need it to matter just as much as it seems to when we are gone. We deserve more than we deserve more when we are alive.
Yes. Yes. Preach,
Mm-hmm.
Erica.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Can you send me that?
Mm-hmm.
Like slide that through my
Mm-hmm.
DM.
Mm-hmm. I read it in my head, but to like
hmm
speak that right now gave me chills. I was like, ooh, it shouldn't have to be this for people to be like, oh, this is horrible. I often have taken it's troubled me, and this really came up, during the previous election period. It troubled me when people would say like, "Oh, my uncle, my auntie, they're racist," but that's how it is, and or I was just like, "How am I to embrace your racist relatives and you kind of
Yeah.
humanize them?" That happened at a startup company I worked at. This woman, her dad, pro-Trump. She was vocal about it, but then will also be very vocal about how she was liberal and blah, 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 but then would also say inappropriate things. And it would just be so confusing because that was, oh gosh, what happened then? This is so sad that I'm like, what was the trauma that summer? Um, it was the white supremacists. They were marching. They had the rally. Remember, they had the tiki torches.
Yep.
It was that summer. Yeah, that was 2017.
Oh my
Yeah. So,
God.
and just coming off that makes it. And we just talk about workplaces. I think it's, if for lack of better words, a gift that people for the most part are remote, because these are always uncomfortable things to carry and then go to work.
Agreed. Agree. Oh God. I mean, I didn't even think about that till you just said it. You were
I didn't
so
think about it either until I just said
right.
it, but
Oh my, and it's like you looking at people sideways. Like
you
it's
looking at
your
people
people. It's your
sideways.
people.
And then you be looking at the Slack conversations like, is anybody gonna say something on Slack? Or are we gonna pretend like this isn't happening and send pictures of animals and cats and stuff? Like I'm
I
that person. I'm
mean,
like,
it's always the It's always the latter. It's always the latter. Like it's never. First of all, like I mean, the reality is, especially for people who are in corporate environments that know this, the reality is that anything that makes people who aren't people of color uncomfortable is something that's taken like Like it's a priority. You know what I mean? So like
Mm-hmm.
if the person, if there's a group of people and you have the group of people who are people of color and the other people who are not, whenever the conversations arise, the people who are not of color are always going to make things lighthearted. Always. There's
Mm-hmm.
never going to, or not even mentioned, or it won't even be mentioned. It's just
Mm-hmm.
something that it's not even a thought. And then you're
Mm-hmm.
coming into work with you and, let's say, my other person of color, and we're looking at each other like, how are we supposed to get through the day? You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like, how are we supposed to respond in this Slack group? Like, what, like,
Mm-hmm.
it's super uncomfortable all the time whenever these
Mm-hmm.
situations happen. And you already know, like last year and the year before, there were tons of situations. So you're going
Yeah.
into work and you're just kind of like another one, another one.
Mm-hmm.
It's just,
Mm-hmm.
it's just a lot. It's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What brings you joy, especially in times like what, you know what? I want to be really specific. What has brought you joy in the last 6 weeks? What have you done to be like, I need happiness, I need joy?
Yeah, that's a tough one. Well, I will say that the fact that I'm not in this alone and I live with my
Mhm.
partner is super helpful because, you know, we can be a reprieve for each other. So that's really
Yeah.
good. And we both have had highs and lows throughout this time. But I'll also say connecting with people. Like it's, you know, there are people in my circle who have been sick, and I know people in my circle who have people who have died. So it is close,
Mm.
but I am also grateful for the people who are still healthy, still safe, and pushing through and being able to connect with them, whether it's like a Zoom or a FaceTime or whatever, and just like have that moment has been super helpful.
Yeah.
I happen to have I have a huge family, like huge.
Ooh.
And yeah, my mom has 14 brothers and sisters. It's crazy.
Stop.
Yeah.
It's a tribe. I love it. I love big
So
family.
I have multiple cousins, like millions of cousins. And we're also like Latinx, so like, you know, the guys in my family, it's just a lot of kids. It's a lot happening. It's a lot. So my cousins, my core cousins, a lot of them, they're Tauruses. So everyone's birthday's in
Mm.
May. So
Really?
we've had a lot of Zoom calls to like check in, whatever. And even
Aw.
though sometimes I'm annoyed by the calls because of work, I'm on so many calls that I'm
Mhm.
tired of being on the screen. It is nice to connect with people and connect with family because life is too short and this is all we
Yeah.
have, you know? So
Yeah.
that brings me joy. It's like small pieces of joy, but that brings me joy as well.
Mhm.
And me and my partner, we've done a lot of things in our home. Like we've kind of like rearranged our home. So home projects have been helping. We've been like
Nice.
doing art therapy and coloring a
Oh,
lot. Just like different self-care stuff, just like tapping into the little things. And it's
yeah.
amazing because like when we're out and ripping and running the streets and like, you know, we're all like entrepreneurs and feeling and doing all this stuff, we never take a moment to actually like
Mhm.
be home and figure out what you do in your home. And it's been
Mhm.
kind of, it's not like I'm tired of it, but it has been nice to have a couple of weeks where it's like, okay, we can actually focus on being home and what that looks like for us. So those are
Yeah.
my little small joys in this time.
Aw, I love that. What last words of encouragement do you have? It could be whatever's on your heart. What do you wanna say? It could be, to Black folk, to all folk, whoever.
uh, well, if I'm gonna just specify, if I'm gonna be specific, I'm like, to my Black and brown people, we are in this together. We see you, we hear you, we feel your pain. We're all in this, and we'll just have to have strength for each other and love. So that's one thing. But just in general, as like words of advice, I would say do the work. I feel like that's something
Mhm.
I say all the time, but I feel like people don't understand like the magnitude of it. There's so many people that I meet who are like, I want to do this, or I want to start this, or I can't understand why this isn't happening. And it's just like, what work are you doing to make sure that this happens? You know what I mean? Like a
Mhm.
lot of things that we're doing, obviously, like luck and opportunity play a part and things like that. But if you really want something to happen, and whether this is internally, emotionally, whatever, if you really want something to happen, there is some effort of work you will have to do. You know, God always says, I can help you, but you got to do your part. And I feel like
Mhm.
people out here in these streets not doing their part. And it really bothers me because we can all be so amazing and tap into so much potential if we actually took time to do the work. So I will
Mm.
say that.
Hallelujah on that. That's a word. That's a word. You out here preaching.
I be trying. But I'm telling this to myself too, but yeah, I be trying.
Listen, you out here preaching. This is a word. How can we support you, follow you? I mean, I know how, but you got to tell everybody else.
Please follow the podcast, Non-Corporate Girls. We are in season 4. This has been a passion project for some time now. This business has really grown with blood, sweat, and tears. So we just want to continue to push out good content and create a community. So follow us at Non-Corporate Girls on Instagram. Follow the podcast on all streaming platforms. Check out our website, noncorporategirls.com, and sign up for our newsletter because we've been rolling out a lot of fun things in our newsletter. And you can follow me if you want to follow me on Instagram at @the_Aya_brand. I always forget my own Instagram handle. And then and then if anyone out there ever needs like any marketing support or anything like that, feel free to reach out to my website, www.ayannadutton.com.
Excellent. Ayanna, thank you so much for this wonderful, and this has been fun, invigorating.
Yes.
Thank you.
Oh my God, first of all, you already know how we feel about you. You're a light. So this was a no-brainer, and I'm just so happy that you had me on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Hey, before you go, this has been another episode of Inside Out Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcast or Google Podcast or follow on Spotify. Subscribe to my YouTube channel, Y'all Right Productions, for more digital and visual content coming your way soon. Follow Inside Out Podcast on Instagram and follow me, Ms. Right on Time, on the gram and Twitter. Thank you all for tuning in. I'm your host, Yamoria Wright. See it, say it, spell it, and don't wear it out.